this is another piece that's obviously really site specific. This is Sputnik. And, you know, it's, again, we've probably walked by these billboards a zillion times. He walked by this billboard and saw something very different, saw an opportunity to go back and cut the Nike logo to then, you know, put around the model's neck. And when we put this up on the site, it really got a lot of negative reaction. People were angry. A lot of people were saying this, we were showing violence against women. The artist had violence against women, and that they were demanding for us to take it down. When we reached out to Sputnik, he said, wait a second, that's not what I intended at all. I believe that the corporations are violent, that Nike is violent as a brand. They're violent in both how they produce their product and where they produce it, and in their advertising. He actually thought that the image of the woman itself was inappropriate and crazy, and he wanted to hang the brand with its own logo to really cut Nike, not the woman model in the piece. We have some big files. We have a lot of really high-res photos. Trust me, they all load. This is a piece by Laura Keeble. She's from the UK, and it's called Idol Worshipping. This is another example that Marc was talking about of really expensive pieces. Laura works very hard, saves up all of her money to do installations like this, commenting on brands and you know, our society's interaction with brands.
So this is Dr. Gecko, and this is an artist working in Spain. And let me explain to you, because these are cutouts, obviously, what's happening. So the bus shelters that you know, advertising goes in, and the bus shelters have a day where there's, you know, obviously it's not illuminated, and then once the sun sets, the lights go on and the ad is illuminated. So Dr. Gecko, what Dr. Gecko is doing is actually playing with that. So the ad on the left is an ad for Desperate Housewives, which the advertiser put up in the light box. In the light box, it looks exactly like that. He takes the ad out, goes back to his studio and works on it. And so in the daytime, the ad is exactly like you're seeing on the left, the Desperate Housewives ad. But when the light box goes on, it illuminates here the skeletons and the skulls. So it plays with night and day, and there's a lot of amazing projects.
He does ones where tattoos come out at night.
So again, definitely Google Dr. Gecko.
This is one that Marc and I know, these tend to last longer on the street because anyone who would be looking for something illegal would be looking during the day. They might not notice it at night, so they tend to stay out.
So this is, again, 14th Street. This is New York, where we are. This is Pixelator. And as you know, in cities around the world, New York being one, ads are becoming digital. So no longer do we have the static paper ad. We now have a little video loop for a TV show we have. What Pixelator has done is he goes and creates a grid so that the ads start to reflect a beautiful mosaic tapestry. They've become very complex, where some of them are now what you'd find stained glass in a chapel with the light in the back illuminating different things. What Pixelator really represents is what a lot of artists are doing is this is all open source. So you can go online and just like with the Graffiti Research Lab, you can get the exact specs of how, the process of how he does this, and you can participate by giving, you know, your process as well. So this is really to show how as technology changes, the artists are adapting to intervene in different ways. Again, another example of this. So this is Skull Phone. This is in Los Angeles, where the billboards now are very digital. And what Skull Phone has done, and a lot of artists are doing it now more and more, is hacking the grid. So Skull Phone hacked the grid where the advertising are, reprogrammed the grid to display the skulls until somebody found out. What you are seeing a lot of, and what is amazing is, you know, when you go on the highway, there's now on the side of the highway a little notice that's flashing, you know, accident ahead or what have you. A lot of artists now are going in and hacking the memory of those roadsides to say different statements, and it's part of kind of this you know, hacking the grid system.
So Marc had mentioned Swoon. A lot of her pieces are action-based. This is also true of G. Lee. This is the Bubble Project. This is also a really well-documented project. And if you talk to G, he'll describe this as a performance piece. So in this case, he's dressed up as a worm with his headphones. He rides down on the subway, gets out at a stop, and puts up these blank bubbles on ads all over the city. And then he lets the city play their names with the ads. This one, What Country Would Jesus Bomb? He has a whole book on different bubbles that are filled in by people on the streets, and it's really fascinating to see what the common person can do with you know, your common bubble.
So what a lot of people don't know, and we didn't know in the beginning, because how would you know, is that most street art, not most, but a lot of street art is actually the end of a public performance. So as Sara said about G is actually doing a performance with the bubbling being the end of it, and then the writing in and the documentation of it. It's a great website, a great book called The Bubble Project. And then there's artists like Zeus, Zeus in Paris, who, this is the Liquidated Logos project. And until you meet Zeus, and not many people do, or until you see one of his performances, you have no idea that, like Billboard Liberation Front with the Ronald McDonald characters that they've been doing, that this is the end of an ephemeral public intervention. And what Zeus taught us is that the photograph, and he was very kind to let us use the photograph, is actually misrepresenting the whole project. But because it's ephemeral, there isn't a lot of documentation of the actual performance, and that's something that, you know, that we came to for years. There's also different types of approaches to this. So this is in London, the Cut Up Collective, and I think we have 2 or 3 versions of this. So what the Cut Up Collective has done is they've taken the original ad, they've documented the ad, they go back to their studio, and they've used an algorithm to remix the ad into different quadrants, which are then cut up, put back on the billboard as a completely different image, only using the imagery of the original ad. So stripping the messaging out of the ad by putting it through an algorithm that comes up with the different characters. And again, it being ephemeral, over time, these little pieces that came out of the computer start to erode and fall off. A third one kind of showing the same thing.
So environmental reclamations. This is really along the lines of looking at your city, thinking about the urban environment, and trying to connect with it and make it, I think, a little bit more humane. This is, and I'll grab the date here, this is from 1992, Catherine Miller. She's actually throwing seed bombs at a Raytheon plant. And seed bombs are quite spectacular because a lot of guerrilla gardeners are out there making seed bombs and throwing them over the fences into vacant lots so that in a couple weeks flowers will start to bloom. I know that recently you could actually buy seed bombs on Etsy, so you can start seed bombing yourself, but this is a way, again, to really proactively make the city a little greener.
Another interesting project for us is, sorry about that.
That's a big file.
I will get it, hold on.
This is a really big file. So you can start talking.
Wow, yeah, so Detroit, that's not Detroit. Okay, hold on. It will come up.
That's Brazil.
So Detroit, hard hit like a lot of cities. Desolated buildings along the highway. Nothing is happening to make those buildings come to any different state that they're in, with incredible neglect. The Project Orange Object Orange rather, was very interesting because artists, activists painted not just one, but a whole row of these buildings orange, bright, bright orange. And it was only after that the buildings were painted orange did the city ever take action. And the point here is that to tear them down, is that you didn't really notice the building until it was bright orange. And the statement was very strong. There was a fantastic video on this project that Good Magazine did. So if you're on YouTube, definitely Google it. But Object Orange is an interesting example. Another, shifting gears a bit, is Nelly, who, this is the National Congress in Brazil, who's actually working with one of the most ephemeral materials ever, and that's ice. This is only one image that will melt, obviously, fairly quickly depending on the temperature. There's performances that he's done with 300 of these. So he's working with crews to put them down very quickly in a public space, and then letting the sun slowly erode and dissolve the entire piece. So the question is this a performance piece? Is it an art piece? Is it both? Is it an intervention? What is it?